every single championship season ranked from worst to best. Let's do this video. What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video on the channel today. This is going to be a nostalgia trip. We're going to go through every single championship season from 2004 all the way to the present day, and we're going to rank them from worst to best. And I can't tell you guys, this was the most difficult list I've ever made in a video ever. Now, a lot of my decision making is based on the drama. I'll be very interested to know in the comments down below, what do you think is the best season the championship has ever had, and what do you think has been the most underwhelming season the championship has ever had? If you guys like what you see, please make sure do give this video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't done that, really made my day. A lot of you have subscribed to the channel, so thank you guys so much for that. And please share this channel to as many people as you can, all that really made my day. But without any further ado, let's crack on with this video. In fact, before we start this video actually, I just got very rudely interrupted with a huge breaking news from the championship. Sheffield United have announced their new manager, Slavomir Jokanovic. How do I feel about this appointment? I'm happy he's back in the championship. Obviously, he has won 2 separate promotions in the championship with Watford and of course with Fulham. Now he's going to have a huge amount of expectation with the squad that he's got in front of him. But in terms of Sheffield United getting a manager that knows the championship and can get promoted out for championship, I think that's a great appointment from his part. He has been away from English football for a little bit, but I actually think out of all the options they could have had, I think Jokanovic is one of the better options that they've gone for. So fair play Sheffield United. I'm really excited to see how they're going to function under Jokanovic. Let's actually crack on with this video. So starting with, in my opinion, the worst championship season they have had. For me, it is the 2010-2011 season. The main reason why is that promotion and relegation on the final day was automatically decided. So there wasn't any really drama in the final day and nothing that anyone really needed to play for. It was a great season for Abdel Taarabt, who picked up 19 goals and 19 assists in that season. He was absolutely unplayable in the championship. Playoffs overall were a little bit disappointing in my opinion. But in the final, we weren't disappointed. There was a 6-goal thriller with Scott Sinclair scoring a hat-trick. So there was some positives, but that for me has been the least dramatic season of the championship. The second worst season, in my opinion, was the 2008-2009 season. A very similar reason to the 10-11 season. Promotion and relegation were already decided in the final day of the season. There was a little bit more impetus on the top 6 though, because Preston, actually who were outside of the top 6 in the final day of the season, managed to climb into the top 6 on the final day of the season. So I guess the season was a little bit dramatic in its climax. Cardiff being the unlucky side, who managed to fall from 5th to 7th place after losing their final game against Sheffield Wednesday as well. In terms of drama goes and playoffs as well, nothing really too memorable in my opinion. The next season I picked in 15th place is the 2005-06 season, one of the earliest seasons in the championship. Now, relegation, promotion and top 6 were automatically decided for in the final day of the season, and you may think, why on earth am I putting 05-06 as not the most boring season? Simply 3 words: the playoffs. Oh my god, one of those playoffs games was absolutely insane. Leeds going up against Preston. Leeds got down to 9 men in the second leg of their game, and despite that, they actually progressed against Preston 3-1 on aggregate. Unfortunately for Leeds, they did lose out in the playoff final against a very young, youthful Watford side. I don't think it's one of the more dramatic seasons we're going to get later on, but overall, it had a little bit of something. 14th place for me is the 11-12 season. Now, Reading already secured the title at that time, but there was something to play for on the final day for the final promotion place between Southampton and West Ham. Now, West Ham were disadvantaged in the final day. They needed to win and hope that Southampton dropped points to get promoted. Both of those teams won, so it meant Southampton won promotion ahead of West Ham. But West Ham did win in the playoffs, following an 87th minute winner from Ricardo Vaz Tê as well. I guess it was a bit dramatic when Portsmouth entered administration in the second time in 3 seasons, and they got a 10-point deduction. Now, without that deduction, Portsmouth would have survived in that championship season. Not the most dramatic season I've seen, but definitely a very nostalgic one. In 30th place is the first ever championship season where its name changed from Division 1 to the championship, the 04-05 season. Now the relegation and the playoff picture was taken to the final day of the season. West Ham overtook Reading to get into the top 6, so West Ham were outside of the top 6 before the final day of the season. And in the relegation picture, just as dramatic, Crewe, who were in the relegation zone, overtook Gillingham on the final day of the season because Gillingham dropped points against already relegated Nottingham Forest. The promotion picture was also open as well between Wigan and Ipswich. Now Wigan was the team that managed to win it in the end because they beat Reading, and following this defeat from Reading, that is why they fell out of the top 6. And Ipswich couldn't capitalise because they failed to beat 20th place Brighton. So a lot of factors going in different directions. Definitely what you see in a typical final day of a championship season. For 12th place, we're going to go a decade later to the 2014-15 season. Now for this season, we actually saw the most goals scored by a single team in the championship, Bournemouth, who still hold the record as the most goals scored in a single season. They actually overtake Watford to win the championship title on the final day, as well as Watford failed to beat Sheffield Wednesday. Now in the playoff race, there was something to play for. There was up to 3 teams that could get into the top 6. Now Derby were originally in the top 6, but they lost 3-0 to Reading. And following this, Brentford replaced Derby in the table by beating Wigan 3-0. And this was Brentford's debut season in the championship as well. I guess what was also dramatic in this season as well is that we saw an East Anglian derby in the Championship playoff semi-final, Norwich going up against Ipswich. Ipswich got down to 10 men and then Norwich scored the resulting penalty, and from this, Norwich took full control, winning that game 3-1, going through 4-2 on aggregate. For 11th place, we're actually going to go to the following season, the 2015-16 season. Now, this is giving me similar vibes for when we saw the final game of the season deciding relegation. But for an exception for this season, we saw a promotion 6-pointer. It was Middlesbrough going up against Brighton, 2nd versus 3rd. They were on the same number of points as well, going into the final game of the season as well. Whoever won got promoted to the Premier League. So what happened was Middlesbrough took the lead in this game, Stuani getting the opening goal, but Dale Stephens equalised for Brighton in the second half. He gets sent off though 4 minutes later. And looking at the stats, Brighton only had 1 shot on target. So overall, I say definitely looking at those stats, Middlesbrough did deserve to get promoted. And following that none of these sides beat each other, it ended 1-1. Middlesbrough, by a better goal difference, got promoted to the Premier League with Burnley. Unfortunately, the playoffs and relegation was already sealed by that time, but that game alone had so much tension you can cut a knife with it. We now get to the top 10, and this is when it gets really tough to separate the seasons. I picked a 2006-07 season, so this was when Sunderland and Birmingham got promoted. Now, Birmingham actually threw away their chance of winning the title by losing 1-0 to Preston, and Sunderland smashed relegated Luton by 5-0. Now, the top 6 in the final day was very tight, but nothing too crazy as no side actually dropped out of the top 6, as all the teams going for those top 6 places actually managed to win their games. But the reason why this season is so high up the list is one playoff game in mind: Southampton and Derby. If you're going to watch old playoff games, I definitely would recommend watching the second leg of Southampton versus Derby. So, to give you context, Derby won the first leg away from home 2-1. And then you'd be thinking, you know what, Derby have got this in control. And they did take the lead from Darren Moore. But Southampton took a fight back. They actually won this game 3-2 to take the game to extra time, and eventually it went to penalties. And unfortunately for Southampton, Indigo Idiakies missed the crucial penalty, meaning Derby got through to the playoff final 4-4 on aggregate. And of course, Derby won that playoff final. And let's just not go into what happened next year. For 9th place, I'm going to go for the following season from that season, 2007-2008. It was one of the tightest leagues you could ever see. Only 29 points between 22nd and the top placed team, which is absolutely crazy. That in itself has actually risen this season up quite a few places. Now, 2 teams were already sealed relegation, but up to 7 teams could have been relegated on that final day. And the final team that was relegated was Leicester. And they actually went down with a -3 goal difference. Only Crystal Palace conceded less goals in a single season than Leicester. Now, Southampton were previously in that bottom 3. But because Southampton beat Sheffield United, they replaced themselves with Leicester. And Leicester dropped into the relegation zone despite holding out a draw against automatically promoted Stoke City. And following Stoke dropping points, West Brom actually managed to pick West Brom to the title on the final day of the season. For 8th place, I'm picking the 2016-17 season. Now, promotion was already sealed. Of course, Newcastle and Brighton were automatically going to be promoted. But Brighton lost out on the title on the final day by losing against Villa, and Newcastle smashing a win against Barnsley. The relegation battle was also really dramatic as well. Either Blackburn or Forest were going to get relegated. Now, Blackburn won their game, so they did all they can with a great 3-1 away victory against Brentford. Forest lost 3-0 against Ipswich, but by 2 goal differential, Forest survive and Blackburn get relegated. So it was such a shame for Blackburn to get relegated. But another big reason why this season is so high up the list is its playoffs. Now, Fulham and Reading, we had 1 red card. Paul McShane got sent off, but Reading edged Fulham in the final. But of course, the main talking point was Sheffield Wednesday and Huddersfield. 0-0 first leg, 1-1 second leg, penalty shootout. Huddersfield win 4-3, and in the final ended 0-0 against Huddersfield and Reading, and Huddersfield win 4-3 on penalties to achieve their first ever Premier League season. I mean, those penalty shootouts, why the 2016-17 season is so high up the list. A very iconic season for Huddersfield, a great underdog story as well. For 7th place, I'm picking the 2013-14 season. Now, the final day of the season was very dramatic there. Now, the biggest talking part of this game was the final relegation place. It was either going to be Doncaster or Birmingham that were going down with Yeovil and Barnsley. Doncaster were losing 1-0 to Leicester, who of course were up in the top 6. And Birmingham were 2-1 down to Bolton. And if the results stayed the same, Birmingham would have got relegated and Doncaster would have survived. However, Paul Caddis with an equaliser in the 88th minute for Birmingham, making it 2-2 between Bolton and Birmingham. That singular point made them joint on points with Birmingham and Doncaster, and Birmingham had a better goal difference, so it meant literally by the final few minutes, Birmingham swapped places with Doncaster. Birmingham are safe and Doncaster are down. Another bit of drama which I think got overshadowed, Brighton actually managed to snatch the top 6 in the final day as well by beating Nottingham Forest, and Reading failing to beat 2nd place Burnley. And of course in that 13-14 season, we had the dramatic playoff final as well. QPR and Derby. QPR going down to 10 men with Gary O'Neill getting sent off, but Bobby Zamora scoring the 90th minute winner. QPR who were down to 10 men, beat the 11-man Derby side to get into the Premier League. What a climax to an incredible season. In 6th place, I picked the 2017-18 season. Now, promotion was already sealed. Of course, Wolves already got promoted. Now, you may remember this season for the fact that the playoff picture was still in hand. 2 teams could have gone into that. And of course, the relegation picture was still intact as well. Reason why it's not quite as higher as other seasons, there wasn't too much shifting in the table. Derby stayed in the final playoff place, and despite Preston having a fantastic win, they couldn't quite get in. But the reason why this season's so high up the list is Bolton Wanderers. They were 23rd going into the final day of the season and were 2-0 down against Nottingham Forest. But a 3-goal comeback, Aaron Wilbraham scoring a last-minute winner, that goal kept Bolton in the championship, and that meant that Barnsley went down. An unbelievable climax to the season. And one thing also on the line was the final promotion place. It was either Fulham or Cardiff getting it. Now, Fulham were 23 games unbeaten going into this game. Cardiff were in pretty much second place for the whole season. They drew 0-0 with Reading, so the opportunity was open for Fulham to get second place. All they had to do was to beat Birmingham, who were fighting for relegation. They lost 3-1, so it meant Fulham had to go through to the playoffs, and eventually Fulham actually won via the playoffs. Now we get to the top 5. 5th place for me. I'm actually going to put this season, the 2020-21 season, in 5th place. Now, the final day drama was unbelievable. You saw me do a stream, a watch along on it. Obviously, it was the relegation battle that stole all the headlines. The promotion and the top 6 in the final day was already sealed. Of course, we started off in the day with Derby being the team who are safe. An early Rotherham goal makes them safe. Then, Sheffield Wednesday take a lead and Derby fall down to 23rd. Derby complete a 2-goal comeback and now they're 22nd. But then Sheffield Wednesday complete another 2-goal comeback, Derby down to 23rd. Then Rotherham concede against Cardiff, then Sheffield Wednesday survive and Rotherham fall down to 22nd. Then a penalty by Martin Waghorn, dragging Sheffield Wednesday back down, and that meant that Derby were safe. And following Wickham actually winning their game against Middlesbrough as well, it condemned Sheffield Wednesday to the bottom of the table, to go from 21st to rock bottom just by one penalty. It's such fine margins. What a climax this season could be. I'm hoping the final, which I'm going to predict tomorrow, is going to be just as dramatic. Now, 4th place was pretty much the first championship season I remember watching, the 2009-2010 season. Now, if you thought Sheffield Wednesday and Derby was dramatic in the final day, this was basically the first version of a relegation 6-pointer on the final day. Now, to give you some context, Crystal Palace, a team who had entered administration in this season, had a 10-point deduction. Now, if they finished outside of the bottom 3, that point deduction was going to apply to this season. Now, if that did apply, they were actually in 21st place. And who did they play? 22nd place, Sheffield Wednesday. A win for any one of those teams confirmed their survival in the championship. Absolutely unbelievable drama this was. Palace actually took the lead twice, but twice Sheffield Wednesday pegged them back. And with 3 minutes left, Sheffield Wednesday bombed forward trying to get a winner, but they can't quite win it. Sheffield Wednesday failed to beat Crystal Palace, which meant Sheffield Wednesday got relegated, and Crystal Palace, by the skin of their teeth, survived a championship season. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, in terms of promotion, top 6 that was already won, but the playoffs were something else, I tell you what. So the first semi-final game, we had Nottingham Forest going up against Blackpool. We had a 7-goal thriller in the second leg, with Blackpool edging Forest by 4-3. And it was Blackpool who took the advantage in the first leg, but Blackpool managed to hold on with DJ Campbell getting a hat-trick, him making the difference in that particular game. Now, in the other leg, it was Cardiff against Leicester. Now, Cardiff took a 2-goal lead in the first leg, but Leicester turned it around completely. However, Peter Whittingham steps up and he scores a penalty. And following that penalty, the game went to extra time and eventually went to penalties. And Cardiff were the actual winners, winning 4-3 on penalties, and Martin Waghorn losing the decisive penalty. And the final was great too. Cardiff took the lead twice, but Blackpool won it by 3-2. We've now made it to the top 3. 3rd place, maybe a surprise to you, the 1920 season. Now, obviously, one of the most bizarre seasons we can remember. It was one of those seasons that got halted, and we were thinking, is it going to go points per game? Is it going to get finished? It does turn out that it will be finished. And I tell you what, I'm glad to have seen it. The games we saw on the final day were absolutely incredible. The final promotion place was to play for. West Brom or Brentford were going to get it. The top 6 was something to play for as well. 2 teams out of Swansea, Cardiff and Nottingham Forest were going to get into the top 6. And in terms of relegation, we had 7 teams who could have got relegated on the final day. And honestly, the bottom 3 kept changing like babies' nappies. Now, the unbelievable moment was when Brentford played Barnsley. Both of them had such an important game on their hands. Barnsley led Brentford twice and they held on. They got the winner as well in the 90th minute as well. And because results actually went their way, Barnsley, who started the final day in 23rd, survived in 21st place as well. And following this, Brentford could not get promoted because they didn't get a single point against Barnsley. And West Brom, despite dropping points against Queen's Park Rangers, they somehow stay second place in the table. It meant that Charlton and Wigan got relegated with Hull for the fact that neither one of those two sides won their game. Another big dramatic moment was the top six. Nottingham Forest, who were in the top six for 217 days, dropped out of it for the first time in the final game of the season. They lost 4-1 to Stoke, and Swansea, who was 7th place at the time, won 4-1 against Reading. So both of them swapped places, and Swansea, who weren't in the top six for pretty much at all in that whole entire season, manages to snatch and grab that final playoff place from Nottingham Forest. Honestly, that drama to its day is absolutely unbelievable, and I think it was that turnaround that really got me decided that needs to be at least in the top 3 best seasons. So we've only got 2 seasons left. Who have I got second place? 2018-19 season. This was so close being number 1, because honestly, if this had a better final day of the season, it probably would have been number 1. But the things that went on, Spygate, and obviously we had Marcelo Bielsa ordering his team to give the goal against Villa as well. Those 2 dramatic moments just ultimately sold it for me for unbelievable championship drama. Jack Grealish got punched in that same season as well by a fan as well. Everything was going on. It was just a complete madness that whole entire season. And it doesn't stop there in the playoffs either. We had a Midlands derby between Aston Villa and West Brom. 2 red cards for West Brom in those 2 legs as well. And Villa edge it out against West Brom on penalties as well. And of course, we see a bit of history in terms of the other leg. Derby, who lost their home game against Leeds, overturned the tie against Leeds, going 3-1 up. Mateus Click making it 3-2, which meant that Leeds was taking the game to extra time. But Jack Marriott, with the 85th minute winner, making it 4-2 to Derby, meant that Derby got through to the final. We also had 2 red cards in that game as well, with Berardi and Scott Malone getting sent off. Honestly, for how mad that season was, that is what inspired me to make championship content on YouTube. So, we've made it to number 1. What season could be better than the 18-19 season? Well, there's only one season that can top this. 2012-2013. Now, you do excuse me, but I'm reading this direct quote on their Wikipedia page, because there's a whole paragraph on what went on in the final day of the season. And that's not even half of why the season was so dramatic. So in the final day of the championship season, Watford and Hull were fighting for the final automatic place. Crystal Palace, Leicester, Bolton, Forest were fighting for 5th and 6th place. So they were fighting for the playoff places. So 2 out of those 4 teams were going to get into the playoff places. On the final day, it was also mathematically possible for any 2 of the 7 teams getting relegated. And the teams were Wolves, Peterborough, Huddersfield, Blackburn, Millwall, Barnsley, and Sheffield Wednesday. Unbelievable. In terms of the promotion battle, Hull managed to win that battle and got promoted in 2nd place to the Premier League after a 2-2 draw against Cardiff. But this was sealed when Watford were beaten 2-1 by Leeds United. Now, Hull were 2-1 up in that game, and in the 91st minute, they were awarded a penalty to seal their promotion to the Premier League. However, they missed their penalty, and in the 93rd minute, Cardiff were awarded a penalty, which was converted by Nicky Maynard. But despite the score ending 2-2 and with that game having a really dramatic finish, Hull could still get promoted if Watford lost out to Leeds. There was an injury delay, so the game was 15 minutes behind all of the other games. And when the Hull game finished, the score was at 1-1. So Watford, of course, were bombing forward, trying to get that final goal, 1 goal away to the Premier League. However, in the 89th minute, Leeds scored to make it 2-1. And that meant Watford failed to get promoted to the Premier League and Hull would stay promoted. Now, this is what happened in the playoff battle between Leicester, Crystal Palace and Forest and Bolton. There was a very late goal for Leicester against Nottingham Forest that secured a 3-2 victory. Now, as results stood, Crystal Palace could have even lost and they still would have stayed in the top 6. but they managed to get a very late winner against relegated Peterborough. But their big dramatic moment was Bolton falling out of the top 6 and finishing in 7th place. We'll now go to the relegation battle. Following that Crystal Palace beat Peterborough, Blackburn getting a 1-1 draw in their final game was enough for them to survive. A 2-0 win for Sheffield Wednesday over Middlesbrough was enough to keep them up in the league. And despite Millwall losing 1-0 to Derby County, they stayed up in the league as well. And for Huddersfield and Barnsley, their 2-2 draw against each other was actually enough to keep both of them up in the league. Now, Wolves lost 2-0 to Brighton, and they definitely had the most difficult task of staying up, Wolverhampton Wanderers. And unfortunately, with results going up against them and none of the teams around them losing their games apart from Millwall, who were pretty much having the biggest gap from Wolves, that meant that Wolves were relegated by the fact that they lost 2-0 to Brighton. So unfortunately, Peterborough and Wolves were the unlucky two that got relegated in that season. But to also finish it off, 2012-13 was also the season with that playoff semi-final. Let me know of what is your favourite championship season and what do you think is the most underwhelming championship season in the comments down below. I'll be very interested to hear your opinions. But that wraps it up for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure you do give this video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't done. It does really help. And please share this channel to as many people as you can, although it really made my day. But thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. It's only in this video. And as always, take care everyone.